Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are. It's Pio Marola here from Think Linkers, and it's great to come back with another wonderful discussion on LinkedIn here, live with you, where we'll discuss, of course, addressing sustainability requirements, ESG and DPP. Today, I'm in the wonderful capital of Armenia, Yerevan. Did you actually know it's one of the oldest cities in the world? It's almost 3,000 years old. It has amazing food and great people, so I'm really happy to be here. It's also 30 plus degrees, which, it doesn't hurt, considering that in Europe a few weeks ago, we had polar temperatures. So, to begin with, I would like to ask you, where are you connecting from? I'm curious to see where you're coming from. We're supposed to be a great group today, and I'm really looking forward to hear all of your insights, all of your questions regarding this crucial topic that we have today. Now, to begin with, of course, it's not only a pleasure to have such an important topic as sustainability is indeed becoming, more of a structured matter. Before, it used to be a buzzword, a bit of a buzzword. Companies wanted to be sustainable. They were changing their logo to green. They were doing something like that, but there wasn't much behind it. Now we have regulations. And now, of course, we also have an immense need for data to back them up. Today, we have our amazing guests to guide us through this, to this requirements and so on. We have Jürgen Müller and Albis Meyer from Biomedici, who I'm aware had a very interesting event recently, an innovation day, and I'm sure that they will come with plenty of insights on the matter of sustainability, ESG, and DPP. Without any further ado, it's a pleasure to welcome here Jürgen Müller and Albis Meyer.
Hi, Pio. Good to see you.
Hi, Pio.
Great to see you.
Be here.
Fantastic. Always a pleasure having you here. And as I was saying before, I'm really looking forward to hear some fresh news from. We actually had the event on the very same day, on the 18th and 19th of April. And but to begin with, for the people that don't know you yet, tell us something about yourself.
Jürgen?
Yeah, so, okay, I'm starting. So my name is Jürgen Müller. I'm a co-founder and CEO of Biomedici. This makes me kind of an expert with all topics related to data management and using data in order to improve enterprise company operations and activities. This is something we are doing for more than 20 years now, and providing great software products, supporting company with these activities.
And I'm Albis Meyer. I'm the Global Vice President with Biomedici, and I've been in the information and data management space for about 30 years. I'm actually here in Louisville, Kentucky. We're getting ready for the Kentucky Derby here in a few days. I'm back from Germany. We just had a wonderful event with Innovation Day, which I'm sure you're going to talk a little bit about. And we're very excited and energized. So it's a party week here in Louisville. They actually have horse racing starting on Wednesday, and it'll go through the weekend. But got some very interesting topics to talk about today. So looking forward to the discussion.
Fantastic. Well, let us begin with the road to sustainability, because as I was saying, there wasn't much to back up the term sustainability. Now we have regulation, and particularly the ESG and DPP. Let us start with definitions. What are they?
Well, there's several different definitions, and before we get to the definition, I just want to talk about the energy behind sustainability. If you look at sustainability in the last month, the Wall Street Journal did a full-page article on forever chemicals, and then they talked about digital product passports, and then they did a thing on battery product passports, and Gartner has sustainability as their top 3 things. They had the sustainability summit in London about a month and a half ago. So there's a lot of energy around sustainability. And to your point, there's also regulatory requirements which are here and coming in the very near term. So there's a force from a regulatory perspective that's pushing things. And so we will talk about some terms. So ESG stands for environmental, social, and governance reporting that organizations need to do for reporting to financial groups. And Europe is actually leading the charge in this. The European Parliament passed the need for ESG reporting about a year and a half, 2 years ago. And it's really required now to actually do reporting around ESG. And if you look at kind of what they're reporting on the environmental sides, scope 1 and scope 2, and scope 3 will be in the future. And we can talk about those things in a little bit here. And then the other thing that's also being pushed, which is digital product passport that you asked about, which is DPP. And digital product passport actually looks at 19 materials that are being maintained in products that are being brought into Europe, and they will all be required to have this information available for them. And so the European Commission passed this as a standard. The first two, there's really kind of all industries will be required to do it, but the first industry that's going to be doing it is battery technologies, and then the second it gets into electronics. And interestingly enough, the fashion industry is also getting involved and going. Many of the fashion companies are going to provide digital product passports this year. So that's a definition. And then there's a third thing that actually, in working with our customers, that has come up, and that is really in the building and construction industry, and that's kind of called an environmental product declaration, or an EPD, which is also required. And so it's actually a traceability of the materials that are in products, some of the nasty materials, forever chemicals. And it's kind of like a label. If you think about like the Food and Drug Administration, you have actual labeling of the contents of those materials for building supplies. And so we're excited. We're addressing all of those. But those are the things that, in terms of definitions, that are out there.
Yeah, quite many, I would say.
Lots.
And I'm sure that there will be more coming up, I would say. So you recently shared the room with a lot of great data management experts and innovation experts. I'm really curious to hear, what did the industry and what did the market feel about this requirements and regulations?
First, of course, it was, for us, it was in Europe, the first bigger event we were doing after everybody staying at home during the COVID years. So I think that was very, very important, simply to bring people together. And you could also feel it, as I was already mentioning. So it was an absolutely great atmosphere. And I think it was a great opportunity for everybody to connect directly in person, be part of this, and also meet the whole ecosystem and interact with all the different parties. So I think that's really important. So this is also an important message, that these in-person live events are simply also, very important. So it's not, you cannot completely replace this by just doing it digital. So it's a completely different atmosphere that is being created during such an event. And so this was really absolutely great, and a great experience. And I'm very happy that we had so many guests who were attending the session and also really contributed actively to it. So this was really great. And the whole sustainability thing, this is, so we have somehow, it also relates to each other a bit, but we have AI as one of the big topics, which is simply this technology. And this technology simply opens a lot of new possibilities and will change a lot of things. And this is super important. And the second top thing is sustainability. So this is simply, sustainability is everywhere, and everything is about sustainability. So this is what is, what all the CEOs in every companies have on the table at the moment. What do I do with AI? What do I do in terms of sustainability? How do we position our company here? How do we communicate? How do we do that? How can we maybe first cope with what is required, but also maybe making an advantage for us, be maybe better than others, be transparent to the consumers, all that stuff. So this is a very, very hot topic, and it will be also in recent years. I'm pretty sure about that.
Yeah, two other things that I would say that kind of interested me in talking to customers. First of all, a lot of them were very interested in our offering and what we're able to do in this space with our partner. So that came up, and we can talk about that a little bit. But then also, in talking to them, a number of them have actually created vice presidents of sustainability actual roles in their organization that are specifically required to address this. So that was kind of interesting. And then another topic that came up is we had obviously SAP there, and we were talking about our relationship in concert with SAP. And obviously SAP does reporting. And so it's like, how do you get this information from the MDM system up into SAP and vice versa? And so we had that dialogue as well, which is of keen interest to a lot of people because they want to do their reporting via SAP and integrate it into their business application. So we kind of have the MDM and PIM aspect covered with sustainability, and then pushing it on to an ERP system. About 80% of our customers do it. So that was a keen area of interest to our customers in terms of the different components coming together to address sustainability and making it real world as opposed to, like you say, theoretical or putting a label on something or this type of thing. It was actually, we were able to demonstrate the solution set and how this stuff addresses each of these different things, which was extremely well received.
Excellent. And I agree with you. Events like in-person events are really irreplaceable, exactly because they enable this kind of quick reaction and the sharing of ideas. And, people can go to people and ask for solutions, see how the solutions work. So I'm sure it was really an enriching and very fertile ground for discussing sustainability and the solutions for them.
Yes, very much so.
Yeah. So
and you could also see that. So companies are already busy with this sustainability topic. So this is not something they just get started with right now. So I think they really, the majority did realize the importance, and they really started very early on to get into those matters and really improve their activities here. Yeah.
Very good. And what do you think what do you think organizations are struggling with the most when it comes, for instance, to ESG reporting?
Well, I think a lot of it has to do with the ability to automate the solution. Basically it's because you have really two options. You have a manual process or you have an automated process. And so what we've done is we've actually partnered with a partner called Sustain 360, and they're all about sustainability. So they're experts in sustainability and interrogating a bill of material and looking at the actual materials that are being used for production, and kind of looking at them relative to other materials in the marketplace to determine, your CO2 emissions, and to also look at the chemicals, forever chemicals, and the various composition that's associated with it, and then handshaking that back and forth to our system. So if they're doing ESG, they may be doing that in concert with our MDM solution. If they're doing DPP, they would be doing that in concert with our product information management solution. So you're taking information, the bill of material, you bring it over to Sustain 360, which is an engine. It's able to actually interrogate and process the data and then bring back information back into our system. So you have the reporting on the 19 attributes that are required for DPP as an example, or the materials that are required from an environmental perspective in ESG. So that's kind of it's where the rubber meets the road. It gets away from the theoretical and top down. It actually looks at, hey, this is your bill of material, which is brought from EPIM, which may be derived from either an ERP system or a PLM system, or even within our application, and then being able to do the crunching on that and send that information back and then have it available for syndication and distribution. I think that's that was what I think the real world aspect of it is what got people very excited. They could see it. They were like, wow, there it is.
Very good, very good. We have a question here from Nikhil. What is the synergy difference between supply chain resilience and supply chain sustainability? Technology disciplines like MDM, digital twin, AI, ML, processes, and regulations.
So I think so my opinion, I have several different things. So one of the things that we were looking at, and this is an interesting thing, is when you look at supply chains, and this really gets into scope 3. So scope 1 and 2, they actually look at the carbon emissions that you have as an organization based on either immediate elements in the production of a product or ancillary elements like electricity that you're purchasing for the production of that product. When you look at scope 3, you're actually looking at the handshaking for shipping and distribution, the supply chain, and what are the carbon emissions that are associated with that? Can I minimize that based on the route that I'm picking, the mode of transportation, these types of things? And so that's scope 3. And what companies are actually trying to get their head around is, and this is, I think, addresses this direct question, is, hey, there's some trade-offs. If I go this route and optimize my supply chain, it may be more efficient for me, but it actually may create more of a carbon emissions or be more environmentally impactful. So the trade-off an organization has to make is it worth the additional cost to do X versus Y? And the same thing holds true for material substitution when you're making a product. It's like, hey, there's some products that we could substitute, and this is the cost if we do it this way versus this is the cost if we do it that way. And there are definitely differences in terms of environmental impact based on those decision points. And so you kind of are looking at the trade-offs between, what is most environmentally sound and what's most profitable or good for the business, or, those types of things. And those are judgment calls that I think are, very important to consider when you're assessing this stuff. Jürgen, your thoughts?
Yeah. So I agree with what you were saying, and maybe, yeah, especially when we really compare this supply chain resilience and supply chain sustainability, and so what's different and what is the synergy? So the synergy is, of course, to some extent that it is based, so not completely, but to some extent on the same data. So here you definitively have a synergy. Because in both cases, you need data on your suppliers, you need data on transport routes, you need data on materials, you need data on some other stuff. But then it separates a bit, and then you have regarding resilience. So this is like the robustness kind of your overall supply chain. So here it's important to know what is the risks you have with special suppliers, the risk with special routes, the risk with special regions, how can you replace it, and all that stuff. So here comes some additional aspects, but basic data is similar, but then this on top. And regarding sustainability, here's of course, what is the overall impact on environment? So this is another aspect, again, materials, transport, energy consumption, also disposal afterwards, all that stuff. So it's two different aspects. And of course, pretty much different focus. The first one is mainly focusing on reducing the risk of your company. So you have simply a robust overall supply chain, and you're quite sure that you can produce the amount of goods you want to produce, and if no shortages and all that stuff, even in crisis situation, etc. And the other one, this is really about improving environment and environmental situation. So here you have definitively some differences. But of course also, so both, as it's both based on data, MDM is kind of behind this. And also it is a lot of work, especially optimizing, analyzing all that stuff. Companies have large portfolios. They have lots of suppliers. They have lots of different possibilities of options, tons of materials. And this is also, when you're asking before, what are the challenges companies are facing? So one challenge is simply, it is a lot of work. It is simply a lot of work to make sure that you have all this, and especially when it's about, and then you want to optimize things. So then first you need to know what your current situation is in order to start optimizing. So you first need to have the data around so you can assess your status quo, and then from here you can improve things. And here everything that makes this more easy helps. And here, this is also why AI and ML is a significant benefit for doing this.
Oh, absolutely. And we talked about trade-offs, but can you become more can you be sustainable and become more profitable as a result of that?
Absolutely. So this is a different aspects. First, I think also, so generally in society, people are getting more and more aware of the importance of sustainability. So we cannot just continue like we were doing for many years. We cannot continue like this forever. So people are more responsible today. They pay more attention to what they're buying, what kind of services, etc. Investors are the same. They also focus a bit more on what they invest the money into. So simply demonstrating and communicating that you care for the environment, that you're really into sustainability, that it matters to your company, that you want to contribute to a kind of better world somehow. This matters, and this also already helps you to sell your products, maybe also charge a little higher price, etc. So the overall effort you have in managing this and also providing this transparency, I think the overall effort is not so much, also in terms of additional costs. So this is not really a big factor. The consequences, of course, on your production, the consequences on design, construction, things like that. If you really start improving the situation, this might be a little bit bigger investment, but I'm absolutely sure that in the end, in most cases, it really pays out by more attractive products and also higher margins and customers willing to pay a little higher price if you do it the right way. But this means also it has to be part of your overall kind of company culture. It has to be really communicated, very transparent in a very good way. But then this is, I would not regard it as just a cost factor. So it's really a big opportunity as well.
I totally agree. One of the things I didn't mention, and I should have mentioned, is with some of these standards like DPP as an example, it's actually not just looking at the initial product construct in terms of what's in the product. It's looking at a life cycle assessment of the product. So it's like once you have the product and it goes through its end of life, then you're actually figuring out, well, how am I recycling it or how am I reusing it? And for some of these companies, not only are you making revenue on the initial purchase, like Jürgen was mentioning in terms of, hey, I want to do this because it's environmentally good and you get goodwill from an environmental perspective. But then on the back end, let's take batteries as an example. You send the core back, you're going to get repurposed, this type of thing. So you have a more stickiness to the actual initial manufacturer producer with a full life cycle. And if you get into BIMs or building, construction and building information management systems where you're doing replacement, you can actually, continue your life cycle and interaction with those industries because you have a full life cycle, and you actually also have, then they know, well, who am I sending this thing back to? And it's got all the information in it. And so it's a loop back and more of a, I'm not going to call it stickiness, but a tighter relationship with your customers and a full life cycle of the product itself. So I think that's goodness as well, in addition to what you can do from a, feel goods for the environment, initial purchase, this type of thing.
Yeah. And it's interesting to hear also Nikhil remark about the fact that, yes, AML and KYC regulatory initiatives in the finance space So having good customer data benefited overall customer centricity.
Yes.
Yeah. There are so many reasons really to be sustainable, and communicating it correctly is fundamental, but we need the data to back it up, isn't it?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's exactly it. We need the data to back it up. Yeah.
And that's where AI comes into play a lot too. I mean, this goes back to, you asked a question a little while ago about, what do you need to do to be able to set this up? And Jürgen touched on it. We talked about this at our summit with AI, but with the large language models, you can actually look at ingredients, material substitutions. You can actually interrogate a lot of different things and come up with recommendations for substitutions and this type of thing, with AI modeling. And I think that's the future. You're going to be looking at, how do I make this thing more environmentally compliant, and make it so that we have a better future for our children, and kind of, cut out, the forever chemicals to the extent that you can, or at least make sure that, when you're throwing the thing away, that that it has an impact. I mean, one of the things I always think about is in the fashion industry, they have those little things that, take the moisture out of the clothing. And that thing, if you read the label on it, says do not dispose of this because it has chemical composition that'll be in there forever. And most people, when you get it, the first thing you do is you throw it in the garbage can. You're not thinking about it. And so it's really having that awareness of what's in the products, and how am I utilizing them, for a better future, essentially. And so I think this is going to increase, and I think there's going to be more awareness that's associated with this. The other thing that we covered in terms of a topic, which I thought was very interesting, and it's part of our solution set, is the utilization of blockchain as it pertains to this. So when you actually take this information and you have the material composition, you're, time stamping that this is actually what's taken place with this, and it becomes part of the QR code, and you have information about this specific product. So the way some companies have been addressing this are looking at like the use of RFID tags or this type of thing. Well, in this, you can actually just have a QR code and a blockchain that's associated with it to have kind of your intermittent steps through the supply chain, as well as your finished product that is contained in the PIM and available for distribution via various omni-channel. So that's we think that's pretty innovative as well in terms of what we're doing and what the industry will be looking at in the future.
Yeah, very, very interesting. It's a very good way. It's a very intelligent to use blockchain for transparency.
Yes.
Very, very good. Very good. Now, you spoke before about scope 1, scope 2. Can you go a little bit more in ESG? Can you go a little bit more in depth? And can you also connect it to MDM? And how does that help with all the various scopes and steps?
Yeah, so currently, and I'm not the expert, I'm gonna just say that right now. I know scope 1 and 2 and 3 at a cursory level. Our partner Sustain 360 knows it at a detailed level, but I can give you a kind of high level what scope 1, 2, and 3 are. So scope 1 and actually where they are, relatively speaking, in terms of Europe versus the US, and at least my understanding of it. So scope 1 and 2 are really what's being needed to be reported on primarily in Europe, and then also in California, and the rest of the US, it's not mandatory. So it's not even really being pushed super hard. Those are the two areas. And that's currently today, people are doing it. So scope 1 is, hey, this is the carbon, this is what's going on as it pertains to my manufacturing. So every input within the production of that product, and I look at the materials, I look at the interaction that's taking place to make a product. That's scope 1 reporting. Scope 2 reporting actually is a little bit broader. So then you start looking at, okay, within my manufacturing facility, this is everything that it takes to make this product. So I have direct, interaction with the product, and then I have indirect. Indirect gets into, I'm getting my electricity from a utility company, so there's carbon that's associated with that. I'm getting water from this group to cool off the thing, so there's something that's associated with that. I'm getting, I'm using a third party for this, but it's all tied to the production. It's part of the manufacturing facility. It's not the supply chain. It's really the energy and consumption and things that are required. So that's scope 1 and scope 2. Scope 3 is actually, now I'm taking my product and I'm transporting it. And that may be, so it may be internal, it may be factory to factory, business to business, it may be supplier to business, it may be supplier to retailer, it may be, so I'm looking at all those steps that go on from a supply chain perspective. And scope 3 looks at, okay, I have different routes. If I use shipping versus train versus track, on road, there are different impacts that take place from an environmental perspective and from a CO2 perspective. And so scope 3 is required by California right now, and it will be required by Europe I think in the next 2 years is what they're looking at. So, and then the US will follow that. So basically, it's kind of like they've been stair stepping. 1 and 2 required, 3 is a gonna, but 3 is already required in California. So, and our partners, Sustain 360 is doing all 3 of them, and so the market is going to require all 3 of them. But right now, most places are only doing 1 and 2 as a requirement. And as it pertains to MDM obviously has your master data around all these different pieces. So it may be your equipment, it may be your product, your materials within your product, it may be your part of your logistics and supply chain. All of that is maintained within the MDM system, and that's put up into, and you can either do your reporting directly out of MDM, or what most companies are doing is they push it back up to the ERP system. The ERP system, because they're financials and accounting, they do your crunching and pull a report out from that perspective. So that's kind of what you see.
Very good. There's an interesting question here from Nikhil. In your experience, have you been able to create a mapping between ESG standards, regulations, and supply chain functions, such as demand forecasting, order fulfillment, procurement, etc., in terms of data collateral and data inventory, so we can tie them to data quality KPIs, then leading to MDM, data observability, etc.? That's a long one.
It is a long one. And I would say we've done some parts of it, and I think maybe Sustain 360 has done more of it. But I'll leave this to Jürgen. Maybe you have some ideas on this. I wouldn't say we've done this end to end. I think that's my opinion.
Yeah. So I think it's a really an interesting question, and there's quite some potential here, and to some extent. This is actually part of every project that is addressing these topics, because in the end, of course, what it means, if we really systematically analyze the information that is needed in order to come up with the information that are required for the different standards, but also the other operational business activities, then of course this simply adds some additional attributes, values, information items that you require in order to also be able to conveniently provide the sustainability analytics and information, etc., together with the rest. So to kind of define a complete kind of data set that covers all this. So it's very convenient and very easy to get the results afterwards. This is, of course, something that absolutely makes sense anyway, someone have to do it, because when you, for example, when one of our customers is going to use the sustainability features and functions, it simply might result in some additional data that is needed, because maybe not absolutely everything is there. So the data set has to be extended a little bit, and then also covered by the processes, also integrated in the quality gates and the quality insurance processes and all that stuff. So when you plan for a kind of new project, then of course you could do this right from the beginning. But I agree with Al. It's not like it's completely systematically done yet. On a case-by-case basis, yes, and maybe some of our system integrators and consultants around there who implement the solutions are, actually have this on, is part of their kind of tool set already, maybe, but it's definitively always somehow part of it. But I would actually like to point to something else, and this is that especially regarding sustainability, if you want to do this efficiently, so define your status quo, get all the information you have, analyze it, and then maybe also AI-based, get ideas and suggestions on how to improve for maybe certain products, certain processes, or also your portfolio as a whole. Then this is not only based on internal data. So what you also have here is that you also need to connect to external sources. So at least if you want to do it really efficient, because there's a lot of information also available in external databases that can be used in order to calculate things like carbon footprint and things like that. So not all the data is needed in your own data repository. You can connect to outside databases with the more basic and also more scientific information that can be used for those calculation processes. And this is also important here, that we have a mix, and the effort, the additional data maintenance effort and data management effort internally is actually not so significant. It's really you have the combination of your internal data and those external sources, like when you do CRM, B2C customer data, then you might also have an AI involved and connect to address repositories and then automatically correct city names and all that stuff with some functions and features. So it's of course completely different situation, but again, you have the mix of external data and internal data, and you do not need to maintain so much internally.
Yeah, I'd also like to say, because I'm reading this question in a little bit more detail, and like I said, I don't think I would say, hey, we've done this from one end to the other, but I will say a few things. First of all, most of the data is there, whether it's in our system or whether it's in SAP system. Like you look at like procurement, order fulfillment, some of the logistics, and so the data is either timestamped within the MDM solution or it's in the ERP application. And so I would be willing to bet that a number of our customers have done things along these lines that we may not have actually addressed specifically. And if they haven't, the data is there. So getting the result that's being looked for is something that's doable. I just don't want to say, hey, I've been there, done that. I think it's more important to say it's probably relatively easy to get there based on what's being asked.
Very good. Very good. Now, I'm curious. When you met with the participants there, was everyone clear about the importance of data management and MDM in their sustainability effort, or did it come as a surprise?
No, I think it was no surprise. So it was clear for almost everybody. So this is really a topic that it is on the table right now, and is also that most people I was talking to, they were already at least with level 1, level 2. So with the lower levels, they're already dealing with that. In quite some cases, already covered. And now they're working on the next levels. And of course, the digital product passport and things like that, which is actually already a little bit into the future, because this is not mandatory yet, but it will become mandatory 2022 or so to 2030 for most industries, depending on the products. But they're already working on those topics. So it is really... it is. There's a significant awareness, and also companies spend time and effort already to deal with those issues.
Yeah, I think I would totally agree with that. The other thing I would say is, because we talked about the importance of data, and one thing that came out very clear is for some of the reporting requirements, some of the information is reference data. It's not actually data that has a home for this, this type of data. And so tying the data to specific materials and or product as part of reporting is key, and that's what we do as part of MDM. So that's really one of the things that some customers were talking about too. It's like, hey, this is great. This is what MDM's for, maintaining this type of data, because some of this stuff that's being requested traditionally may or may not have had a home, because sometimes you didn't even have a key or a table, for this, in the data that you were capturing. And now it's like, okay, we do have to capture some of this stuff and be able to have it for reporting purposes, and MDM's the home for it, and then let's take it and bring it to the next level. So as Jürgen mentioned, actually that was a topic with the importance of data, and we got into sustainability, but they recognize that MDM is the home for it, for sure.
Fantastic. Now, you mentioned the DPP, and that's not compulsory yet. So why are companies already investing in it? What is the benefit in the end?
So in 2020, it is for some. It's not compulsory for this year. Okay, it is compulsory for the battery industry starting next year. There's actually a subgroup called BPP, Battery Product Passport, which basically talks about the what's required for batteries, and so they're kind of going to be the leader of this thing. And so for certain verticals, they're already doing it. Fashion is another one, as I mentioned, which I was surprised about. But if you look at even a number of the articles that were published a week or two ago, a number of the fashion companies are going to be doing DPP as well. And I don't know if it's as much for branding or whatever, but if you look at some of the fashion, they have chemical composition that's associated with it as well. And so having a QR code, having environmental and a listing of all the materials that are in there, I think there may be seen as a benefit from that perspective. So they're actually doing it without it being mandatory, I think, because they view it as a market opportunity. They view it as, exactly what Jürgen was saying. Hey, I'm doing stuff for the environment. I can charge a premium. People are, more interested in working with something. And what the DPP does, and this is another key aspect, which really gets away from the mandatory side, but what it does is when you're using a solution like ours or with 360 or whatever, you have a third party that's authenticating what's being said. So you've done an interrogation of the materials that are in the product. And so it's not like you're putting a rubber stamp that says, hey, we're green, or hey, we fulfill these requirements for the passport or whatever. You actually have done the work. You've looked at the various, systems that are out there. You've determined where you are relative to the other things that are out there. And then you have, hey, this is your grading, and this is what your score is with these materials. And that shows up on your QR code, and, it's authenticated. So there's huge value in that from a marketing perspective, I think, as well as from it, as opposed to it being mandatory. But with it being mandatory, as Jürgen mentioned, so batteries are first next year. But guess what? The year after, electronics. The year after, it's going to, all industries are going to be doing this moving into 2030, and I think there's a push by organizations, by the consumer. They want to make sure we don't have these forever chemicals. We minimizing the carbon footprint. We're working towards products that are, renewable or reusable from a life cycle perspective. And so it's kind of a combination of things. It's the mandatory aspect and the commercial aspect that are kind of coming together, which is why it's got so much energy and why these companies are doing it starting now. So.
Yeah, 100%. I would say that if I have a sustainable company and a company that really cares about it, I would actually want to, fulfill this requirement and have this on my company. Because, this kind of requirement like the ESG and DPP finally put some kind of stamp that certify the certain degree of sustainability. So, I would want to use the benefit, aside from all the benefits we discussed before, I would want to use the benefit of complying with these regulations, because they just make greenwashing a lot harder and make sustainable company a lot more transparently recognizable. What do you think?
Definitely, totally agree, 100%. And I think that's the consumers are looking for the validation. I think it's a big piece, as opposed to just because we've seen the greenwashing, we've seen what's going on with false claims and this type of thing. In this scenario, it's validated, it's there, it's part of the product history. You have a stamp with it, from a blockchain perspective. You have the QR code and the information that's associated with it. You have an actual passport or environmental product declaration or whatever is required from a documentation perspective on that product. And same thing with the ESG, reporting and scores that are associated with that. It's there.
Yeah, and it's really right now. So even if it's not required with most products, it is definitively an advantage. So it's a plus in marketing, it's a plus in sales. And just if you want to buy something like some running shoes or whatever, and go to an online shop, then it's very difficult actually in most cases to tell if one product is sustainable product or not, and how sustainable is it really, and is it really sustainable at all? So what does it mean? So just providing this information, making it transparent, communicating that this matters to your company and to your business, that is part of your culture and of your values, and really make the information available directly. I think this is really something at the moment that makes a difference, and that gives companies a little bit a competitive advantage, because it is also something that matters to the people. And then in a later stage, when it is mandatory and everybody has to do it, it's still the way you present it and the way how transparent you are and the way you communicate it might also make a difference, but not so much anymore, because everybody somehow has to provide it anyway. And then you will see how this will be actually picked up by the marketing organizations and so on and so on. But right now, as usually, when you are kind of an early adopter and early get into this, you can use it to your advantage.
Oh, absolutely. Also because, you're not going to fool Gen Z on this stuff.
Yeah.
You're not going to do that. They will need to see transparent information about this, because I think I was reading about it in a research. The majority of millennials and Gen Z would pay more for sustainable products, but they cannot identify them.
Yeah.
So, you've got to have this information to make the product sustainable in a way that is really clear in front of you, because the new generations will not just look at the color of your logo. That's not enough, not anymore. So you need data. Yeah, very good, very good. So as always, it's a great pleasure to exchange ideas on these topics, and I'm very glad that we're covering sustainability, because that's what I've seen too at our recent conference. It's all about AI and sustainability.
Yes.
Those are two topics that are really at the top of the mind of every organization out there. And indeed, both when it comes to artificial intelligence and sustainability, MDM is undeniably the foundation for taking advantage of one and complying with the other. What do you think?
No question.
Very good, very good. So let's say some in our audience wants to know more about Via Medici, wants to reach out to you. What's the best way to do so?
So we're going to be publishing a QR code in the chat, and it'll take you to the Via Medici site, as well as the LinkedIn site. And actually, we're also going to publish a link to a YouTube video where you have a demonstration of DPP, so you can actually, if somebody wants to get into the technical thing and see a report and see like the details, they can actually physically see, the product. We try to stay away from product stuff with these discussions, as you know, but if someone is interested and they'd like to see it in action, we can certainly make that happen in the links that we'll provide.
Very good, very good. And it's again, it may not be mandatory for all the organizations yet, but it's very good to start and take advantage of knowing what to do with DPP, because it has benefits way beyond just complying. So I invite everyone to go and check the video and find out more about it. So having said that, gentlemen, as always, it's a pleasure. I look forward to the next time we speak. Do you have any other last message for our audience? Any tip about how to get into how to get into the topic of ESG reporting and DPP if they haven't started yet, or how to make sure that there are benefits beyond just complying? Any last message for them?
Yeah, well, I think so. We're happy to address any questions that they might have. We can certainly put them in touch with our partner, who's an expert. Obviously, you can look at the European Commission. They have a whole reporting on DPP. You can look at the parliamentary, what they've done from an ESG perspective, and we can provide some links for that. So to self-educate yourself. But if you'd like to talk to us directly, we're happy to do that as well.
Fantastic. Yeah. And actually, regarding what to do as a first step, so I would also recommend really go to your own company website, check what is communicated about sustainability and what your company is doing with regard to sustainability, and how is it communicated? Do you find it at all? Is there something at all? And then, of course, maybe in another step, just check out some of your products. How do you communicate here? Do you do it at all? Don't you do it? So then you already know where to start.
Very good. Very good point. Okay, very good. I want to thank everyone who was part of this discussion, and very good questions, actually. And of course, I wish everyone in the audience to follow ThinkLinkers and wait for the next upcoming LinkedIn sessions, because we're going to have more with you, Jürgen and Al, isn't it?
Definitely.
Very good.
Thanks a lot, Theo. Good seeing you all. Thank you, audience. Great questions. I enjoyed it.
Yeah,
thank you very much.
Everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.